If we can, though, guys, we'll get right back into our class and our subject material. We are really engaged at a great time of our lives. It's an opportunity that we're going to have to really bring a real gospel to people. It's to gain an understanding of kind of where we're at, where God's at, and where the lost world's really at. What they have to be saved. And literally tonight, that's exactly what I'm working on and going to be doing my best to bring to all of you. Brother Seal, I don't know, but if you can make a circle, or if there's anybody else out there, you know, to try to encourage their presence quickly, because we are off and running. But I want to kind of begin back and just really get our minds kind of back on first God, I think, would be the place to start. God and His glory. And boy, that is a reality. And by the way, what it was, it's going to end. You understand? And then it begins all over again what was before. So what I'm trying to share with you is that there was once glory, and guess what? After this is all done, there'll still be glory. And there's the only difference. One was in the past, one will be in the future. Does that make sense? There is no difference with God. He is glory. Okay, everybody with me? So in all honesty, there was God in His glory. And we know that in that we've spent quite a bit of time just really, you know, perceiving the reality that God in Himself is totally complete. We've looked at a lot of the attributes of God. There's some in-depth things that I've shared with you, that God's total in His knowledge, in His power, and in all of His ability. He's omnipresent. He's everywhere all at the same time. He's filled on all of the space. Whatever space is, guess who's already there? God's already there. There is nothing that's created outside of God. So God has everything within Himself, and His own descriptiveness of Himself and His glory, which is very important. It involves all of His attributes Himself. It is a place where you have total knowledge. You have a place of total ability. You'll have a place that is total comfort. It's a place that there can't even be a disturbing thought alone. It's glory. Does that make sense to you? And when I say total comfort, it'll never be interrupted. There's concepts that I'm laying out here that we don't have any idea because we're yet to experience those. Have you ever been totally right? You will be in glory. Have you ever been totally good? You'll be totally good because that's what it is. It's just good. And it's good just because God says it's good. Isn't that sweet? It's good and it's right. And it'll always be right. Does that make sense? And so, guys, what, you know, I'm kind of excited about that because that's what's ahead of us. You know, there's nothing but total good ahead of you. There's nothing but total right ahead of you. There's nothing but total comfort ahead of you. There's nothing but total perfection. You need to be perfect. You will be in glory. You won't be on this side. You know, and the nearest of anything of those, understanding of those things, the nearest is only through faith. And that's why it's impossible to ever please God without faith. Because, see, those things I'm talking about, they are unseen and unexperienced. Does that make sense? But the only way we can even come close to experience it is through a little bit of reality. And, of course, that comes by hearing, but you're going to start hearing now on and on and on. I just will make the statement now. One of the reasons that we're so slow about soul winning is in all honesty, we ourselves, and I'm going to just speak to Pleasant View, because in all honesty, we at Pleasant View, I don't think we really see the picture. I don't think we really believe ourselves people are perishing. Does that make sense? We know it. We've learned it. We're kind of concerned about it. But to really just know that that's what's going to happen to every soul, I don't think we're given to it. I don't think we're given to it when we're having an opportunity to speak to somebody, whether it's in the store or wherever it is. I don't think we're moved with a compassion for them, that we want to stop their destruction and feel grieved over if they slip down in this world, get lost. Does that make sense to you? And talk to me. How you doing? And I hope you don't feel like I'm lining you up here paddling at you, because when I said I don't think we're there yet. Because see, we're going to get there. That's one thing I want you to know. We will get there. All you got to do is just keep coming. And see, there's several that's already having, and they're having a great time, a difficult time, because they're going to find other things. But down deep, I think more and more they become aware of these things. They don't want to face up to them. We don't want to face up to people who are lost. We won't want to face up to our children being lost, or our parents being lost, or somebody else being lost. And I'm not there to judge them. You're not there to judge them. But if they're lost, they're lost. Does that make sense? They will go to hell. They will perish. Does that make sense? Now, God gave one thing out of His compassion for us, and all of His glory, and I guess I better back up. In all of His glory, He is self-contained and self-contempt. He is peachy fine. Does that make sense? And the reason that's got to come across to us is God don't need you, and He don't need anybody. Well, you may say, well, then if God wants somebody saved, then He can go get them saved. Well, He has. He got you saved. And He did it through means. And His means is very important because it's all a part of His overall plan and His overall purpose. And it reveals Himself working in the hearts and lives of other people all the way through human history. And what it is, when you look at human history, then you'll see God. Oh, you'll see the human. And what do you see there? What do you see there when you're seeing the human? Huh? Okay. Well, okay. Self. Okay. Ugliness. Failure. When you say inability. Things that's wrong. Blah blah blah. But what do you see? What do you see happening? What do you see happening when David thumps a giant out there? What do you see happening with these people? What do you see happening when a whole room full of people are saved? What do you see happening when a whole city is saved and brought so through somebody that was a nobody? And if there were anything you would consider immoral, improper, unacceptable, you would consider them everything like that. But they wasn't. They become heroes of faith, don't they? Can you say, and you know who they're heroes to? You know who gave them that name? God did. That's God's title. You understand? They're called heroes of faith because God gave them that title. See, they believed a reality. They lived a reality opposite of everything that was and what they seen and what they were experiencing. When they met Jesus, man, they ran and told people what Jesus did because they believed Jesus made a difference in their lives. And when they came and seen Jesus, He did make a difference in their lives. Do you see what I mean? Guys, faith is a real thing. Saving people is a real thing. And real people is a real thing that's going to perish, and that will be a real thing. I've never been much for hellfire and brimstone and emphasis whereby you try to stir the human emotions and particularly implanting fear. Everywhere I see Jesus, He cast out fear. Does that make sense? And yet at the same time, I'm really concerned that we don't fear hell enough. We don't fear the right things enough. Does that make sense? And a lot of people say, well, you fear God. And I understand, when you use that, and from an English version Bible, I could understand why you would say that's biblical. In all honesty, the fear of God has never been, the fear for God has never been terror. You should never be terrorized of God. After all, when Adam did the most nastiest things in the world to God and killed us all, what did God do toward Adam? Huh? Yes, thank you, Samantha. But he's sodding. Yeah, but it's God. And notice, God having to go to work. God's got to move. God had to get up. God had to do something. You see, if that was left to you and I'm afraid we'd just say, here with them. You know? But God got up and moved on their behalf. More than that, he already brought the message of his own son. And you know, and I mean, to me, I just visualize it this way. You know, he's bringing blood and he's bringing the hide of a sheep, showing a covering. He's also bringing the food of the soul, which will be Jesus Christ. You know, and so thereby what's prepared for eventually will be an altar with Abel and those will be an altar there that symbolizes all the usage of that. But it's God that's coming to Adam with those things. Do you see what I mean? And Adam's just acting he's the ugliest. Then he's running away from the only one who can help him. And most of us would want them to ask us at least for our help, right? So while they don't ask, the hell with it. And guys, I really want us to think about our role as we say we are Christian. Does anybody claim that title? It's a great title. It means in Christ's likeness. Sure. Does that make sense? That's what it really means. And, you know, we're supposed to be in his likeness. What would be his likeness? He sought to do what? Save that which is lost, didn't he? That's what he come to do. And that's exactly what he did. And he left us to do the same thing. That's what we've been commissioned and given the Holy Spirit for. And he's done that with you, whoever you are.
Us.
No, wait a minute. I want to address the you first. Whoever you are. You understand? Because you see, to each person, his worst enemy is himself. But God, you know, whatever you consider yourself, that doesn't have a thing to do with it. God's still giving you this job to get done.
Amen.
You can't, you can't consider myself, so okay, I'm unworthy. The people does that. And it's got a thing to do with your worthiness or unworthiness. God said, go preach the gospel. There's good wisdom behind it. Okay, let me kind of wind down here a little bit, but make sure we understand the glory of God. I'm trying to give you an overall picture of what we're dealing with and preparing ourselves with and for. And then the second part of it is that I'm really wanting us to see God through it all. That's the most important part. You've got to see God. Okay, coming back to God, I do not know rhyme or reason. I don't. And I think I've been a very, very dedicated person to the Scripture. And I think God has revealed to me magnificent, just unbelievable things. And I've done my best to share many of those things with you. And the only ones that maybe I'm shorter on is just I don't even know how to express it. It's so great. So much grander. And it's the best life adventure I've ever been on. It's a discovery that is amazing to me minute by minute right now. I've seen more than I've ever seen before. I wish I could have seen all this back when I was 20. And yet at the same time, I couldn't have seen it. It would have killed me probably. I have no idea. God knows. And one thing I'm confident, God's got it all.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense? And just remember things like this, like Joseph telling his brothers. By the way, boys, guys, if you can be here for Roger's class Tuesday night, that is just really instrumental in providing some background for everyone in evangelism or outreach. But in all honesty, just consider this. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. If you're a believer and you're a lover of the Lord, you're following after Him, whatever you meant for evil, God's going to meant it for good and worked it out just fine. Isn't that something? And guys, you ever notice, it's almost hilarious because lost people all the time trying to keep out of stuff, trying not to get in trouble, always pointing their fingers at other people. They're the ones usually end up getting tripped up in their own traps. Here we are, kind of stupid. We just charging through life, and I'll be doggone, all of our mess, God just keeps cleaned up. And more than cleaned up, he uses it for not only our good, but for the profit of others to be saved by it. Amen. Isn't that something? Well, I show you that over and over. The woman at the well, that's why the character of these people, guys, they're people just like you and I. A lot of you don't like to admit this, but Noah definitely was, he loved to drink. Call him whatever, you know. And there's a lot of reasons maybe. I don't know, I like to play there. You can be shut up on a boat for 40 days. You might be looking for a jet too. But whatever, but anyway, drunk, yes, and naked. He got naked in his tent. Justin's getting excited. You know, but no, and then you turn around and look, he's the one that brought us salvation. You understand? Because if it wasn't for those people, and it's just really neat too. Matter of fact, Brother Butch Fast shared with me a message. I believe he preached, Tracy. I don't know if he preached that at his church, but he sure shared this message with me. And he was going over a lot of those people and their characters. And in particular, mentioned, you know, there's drunkards, there's adulterers, there's divorcees, there's everything that's, you know, really is wrong biblically. And not only that, then society would reject and so forth. But it's what God picks up and uses masterfully to end up seeing thousands upon hundreds of thousands. You can't use your flaws for an excuse. Yeah. Does that make sense? I don't care what's wrong with you. You know, I don't care how broken your past life is. It ain't broke to God. And you see, and you know, speaking His words is something every one of us can do. Right? And boy, that's some marvelous things can happen from that. Okay, so God's great in His glory. He doesn't need man, nothing else. And that's kind of important to understand that. But then, in His own desire, He creates what we know as the world and the universes. And from that molds this body of Adam, breathes that eternal souls of all men in Adam, and Adam becomes, in a sense, our first Jesus. He becomes our first representative. But Adam, of the flesh, as we know, Satan and Eve's situation, and remember, Eve's taken from Adam. Try to keep those things. There's real significance why the Bible goes in detail about those very things. Also, the difference between male and female has every godly purpose, and all of them is great. And remember that in the overall things, there is no difference between male or female. It's what faith does for you. You understand? But in our creation, yeah, there's a difference, thank God. Right? Sure. And Adam checked out the whole animal world to realize he didn't have a mate. And he had to have a woman. And that's what God created, molded that body, everything else, and then took that living soul from Adam and made Eve. And gave, I say made, it's bad probably, but it gave to Adam Eve. Okay? You get that? You got to remember, Adam had Eve already. Eve could do him no good. Okay? All right, you guys, please. All right, here we go. Okay, the first Jesus. I lost you there, Kate. Okay, no, Adam is always considered our first representative. Okay, then you have Jesus that comes and he takes on the second Adam. And so, you know, so in the same likeness of using Adam both ways, you can use Jesus both ways. Because Jesus is now our representative, is he not? Now, if you stay with Adam, you'll perish in hell. Can you see? Because he's the failure. But we have Jesus that comes in flesh, and then he picks us up and bears us to the cross, and we know the work of salvation surely by now. And we know that he did everything it takes to save us, and through his resurrection, well, guys, we're saved. And that's the good news. Anyway, God was fine, though, and he needed nothing outside of himself. And then there's this whole factor that goes into this. You have the sovereignty of God that's always at play. That means God's totally in control of all things. He says, "Oh, I'm thy God." He says, "I do good, and I create good, and I create evil. I, the Lord thy God, do all these things." Then he turns right around and will show you, just how he has not only chosen everyone that will be saved, and yet he turns it right around and asks us and weeps for those that are lost that's not being saved. You understand? And what I'm trying to show you is that, yes, he's got everything in his own hand. Yes, he is sovereign. Everything is determined, Yet, in the happening of it, he is very emotional, very caring, very concerned in every aspect. When Adam has sinned, you see God racing with the cure. He doesn't diddle, He comes racing with the cure, which is the message of Jesus Christ again. Blood, lamb, covering, those type of issues now take place. Lamb of an innocent one, the life of an innocent one for the guilty. The only one that was innocent in the flesh was who? Jesus Christ. He's the Lamb of God. And so all those illustrations hold true. So we have Adam, who is our first representative, flunks the satanic test, I guess you could say. He willfully took thereof, make no bones about it. There is an inner desire that we all have from Adam to be God of ourselves. There's tons of deceit, though, that goes with this. And I think we're aware of it, aren't we, here at Pleasant View? And what I'm talking about is the kingdom of me. I think we're all aware, man, I didn't know kingdom at all. But for the lost man, that's all he's got. And to him, he's thinking that's everything. And it's me. And I love how the Hebrew really does show you clearly that Satan, in his test or his temptation, first to Eve and her through Eve to Adam, he brings that across so clearly that, you won't really be separated from God. Well, it's kind of separated. It's like it's just a little easier than that. But you won't be separate. There'll be you. You see, he got you right off of God, got Adam's thought right off of God, right into there'll be you. And you can think, what goes with it is the soul. You. There'll be a you your soul can exist in. See, so then his soul existed in God. His thoughts were filled with God. His desires were filled with God. His feelings were feeling God. And remember their love affair and how God says, man, this is very good. And but old Satan comes and first to Eve, seeing it's pleasant to the eye, the one thing they never to eat. And guys, I tell you what, we still trip up over this because of religion, I guess, or an inherited nature of us trying to decide what's good and evil. If you're still deciding, you're still right back there with Adam, because if you're deciding what's good and evil, I promise you, you're under the tree of knowledge. You're trying to still eat of that same old fruit that separates you from God like that. You're not God, you're not judge. I ain't either. None of us is. Well, that's God. And you see, he's the only one who knows what good is. You notice, if he can turn around and he says, what you meant for evil, man, I meant it for good. If he can turn around and make your mess so good, don't argue with God, okay? You lose every time. Okay, isn't that good that you lose every time? Anyway, it's just precious when you really see it. Anyway, there's the issue after the fall. Then here's the blindness, the hardened heart, and the kingdom of me. Already they were ashamed. They were revealed. And I imagine there's more to it than we even know. I think hatefulness is there. There's bitterness because really, if this is God, they're short. Because see, now they're limited to their physical structure. And I'm sure they were very physical before, but I do believe it was so different. Now they're limited to the same body that they're in. You understand? And then all of a sudden it's got ache and pain, and all of a sudden it stubs its toe, and all of a sudden there's sweat glands popping out everywhere, and then from the sweat will be smell and need of deodorant. Somebody started making money that quick. Anyway, you can kind of get the flow of everything. Then you see God, though immediately, as I mentioned, as Adam has sinned, his attitude again is just rotten toward God, covering. I'm going to fix this, and then there's a big thing that I think religion lives all the time. That somehow you figure out what's good and evil, and you will fix it. And you're going to be standing for good, so that puts you with God. And you see, and then you denounce this other stuff, and you call that evil, and you and God are buddies. And you see, and that's kind of concepts that's been taught at different times through history. In all honesty, you guys, there's only one conclusion of us, and that is we worry. When you separate from God, you are done. What it is. Anyway, so then from there, we go on. After Adam sinned, and what this produces is the separation of soul from God. And guys, what that is called is spiritual death. Why is it called spiritual death? But now notice, what is that death? It is the separation of your soul from God. Your soul is no longer in God. So your thoughts are no longer in God. Your desires are no longer for God. Your feelings is really no longer for God. It's for something else. You know what that something else is? Your old self. That's all that's left. And that's why you think you'll be like God. But again, there's no comparison. And all you've done is threw yourself further away from God than could ever possibly be imagined. Why is it called spiritual death? I want to bring that up. Okay, Merv, I'm sure you've got it. I'd like to challenge some of our other younger thinkers here too. Why is it called spiritual death? Use some logic to it. Come on, somebody. Lori, is that, Becky, you should be an old pro too, man. Lori, you got it? We use giggling, and Alexander, you got it? Why is it called spiritual death? Guys, these are real. I mean, guys, that's real as can be. And honestly, spiritual death, see, if I went to talk about physical death, how many experience physical death? I mean, not yourself, obviously. Okay, how many of you have experienced physical death? I mean, that you've been there, and you have been with people that was there with you, and I mean, you knew they were there with you, and all of a sudden you was left with their body. How many's got that? Now, wouldn't that death get real? So death got real to you, didn't it? Well, see, spiritual death is even more real. It really is. But see, we're not aware because there's something kind of funny that's in the name. That's why I'm asking you, what is spiritual death? What does it mean, spiritual death? Okay, Angela?
When you separate from God,
okay, you're giving a theological answer, but why is it called spiritual death? You're separated from God, she says, huh?
Your soul.
Your spirit. Okay, your soul. Why is it called spiritual? Your soul, you're saying it, hon. You're saying it, but you don't know you're saying it. See, guys, this is one of the things that we've got to get past. We've got to know why we're saying what we're saying. Do you understand? Or we'll just learn phrases that we can throw at people, and they won't have an understanding, and really, we don't either. So why is it called spiritual death? Okay, you're saying your soul. Now I'm going back to that then. I'm agreeing with you, okay? But you're saying your soul, and I'm saying, okay, you're saying your soul separates from him, okay? But why is it called spiritual death? You're not sure? Okay, it's okay to not be sure. I know, Glenn, you ought to be an old timer too. Katie, I'll give you one.
The soul is eternal.
Okay, no, that won't get it either. You still,
Where it ends, it's
Yeah.
either heaven or hell.
right?
So one should
Well, again,
be
no, again, spiritual death. Why is it called spiritual death? We got a physical death, you know. If I shot myself up there and fell over dead, you know, you'd say, Harold Bush is dead, huh? Wouldn't you, you know? And you'd really experience that. Why would you agree that I was dead if I shot myself? Okay, I ain't moving because she poked me, okay? All right, how did she poke me? Guys, okay, we'll spend a ton of time on this, but it needs to be. It really needs to be. Guys, the terms it's given up here, it's not idleness. It's necessary. Spiritual death is the reality, guys, that we're missing. See, the people that you're walking by that you don't realize, they're dead. But they don't look dead. They're walking around. So what, does that help you answer? Can you tell me now why is it called spiritual death?
I guess what I'm thinking here is just, you're no longer walking, it's not a reality that he is real to you anymore. And so, if you're not following him anymore whatsoever. So it's all about you again, you're back on him.
Okay. Yeah, Brian, I know Merv's got it, I know you've got it,
But I think that those that you're trying to get to answer, what they're not understanding in the question is the difference between, it's two words. It's the physical versus the spiritual. And that's what you're trying to get them to see, but they're focusing on the death part and not the first word.
okay, does that help you?
So it says,
Okay,
you're looking at, what by definition, what's the difference between the physical and the spiritual?
well, okay.
When you see the spirit, you know.
And anybody call on me? Trying to help some of these here. Okay, but why is it called spiritual? Why is it called spiritual death? Yes, and Roger's right. You know, I see you are jumping at the term death because honestly, it's not real to you. That first word, it's really not real. It's really not what's real to us. That first word's got to become so real to us. It's got to become so real to us. You hear me, church? That first word, spiritual. What is spiritual? What is spiritual? Can you tell me, Angela? What would be spiritual? Okay? See, if I say physical death, because we're talking about death, there's one's spiritual, one's physical. But what's spiritual death? Why is it called spiritual? No one? Besides my pros? Okay, Anthony.
Death is just death, but spiritual death, you would be thinking your soul goes to heaven if you believe.
Okay. You're in the same bed, let over there, buddy, sliding around. No, sir. Guys, okay, here's the answer. Okay, you ready? The answer is just real simple. Spiritual death, it's unseen. That's why it's called spiritual. It's not seen. Yeah, no, faith, yeah. And it takes faith, because faith gives you the ability to see what's unseen. Does that make sense? Faith gives you the ability, and where does faith come from? Now, guys, why did I say you have to get this? You've got to know this. This has got to be your experience. You've got to know what spiritual death is. Because people are walking around this, and all they are is dead men walking. They're just dead people. There's little ones running by us, but they're dead because their soul is so separated from God. And we're not even seeing it. We're not believing it. We giggle, we laugh, we pat them on the head. We never bring something about Jesus, and I mean, really wade in there and start seeing the necessity of that soul being awakened to the realities of Christ. That we speak to them words of God. Why do we need to speak words of God? Is that's the only way unseen things can be seen. Through faith. And the only way faith comes about is words of God. Is everybody getting it? See, physical death, you can see somebody flop down here dead. And you know, and guess what? I preached a ton of funerals. And I walk by a body, I can't help it. I always touch it. Yeah, I know, it's morbid, I guess. But, you know, I just can't help it because I want to identify with that stillness, hardness, coldness. It's so funny, and particularly somebody that you're really close to, my mother in my case, but she had passed, and already, I mean, just almost, it wasn't but a few minutes, was it, Sammy, something like that. Anyway, we got to go in the room and taking a hold of her hand, and she wasn't there. I said, "Where'd you go?" "You ran off and left us here. You ain't supposed to do that." You know? No, but she wasn't there. Hard, cold, unresponsive, couldn't and wouldn't. And matter of fact, countenance, even physical things changed, didn't it, Sam? Just like that. Because it's lacking the person inside. It's the soul that makes the senses, you know, the senses are gone. Went with the soul. Feelings. So guys, as real as physical death can be for us, maybe we need to go to some funerals. Maybe we need to go, there's tons of them, to get it real to us that people are spiritually dead. And that we can understand. See guys, until we understand they're spiritually dead, that means, you know, they are dead, 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 separated from God, and the only place that leaves them is what it does right here. Their spiritual death, the physical death is a separation of the inner man from the body, and as we've pretty well identified, and then in that spiritual death results into eternal death, the third and final death. This is the death of deaths. Now, if you really want to stay biblically sound, and this is, you know, I don't know if that's a good way of saying it, you'll find that the Bible will describe two deaths, and basically ignores one. Which one do you think it ignores?
Physical.
Okay, they jumped all over it. The one that's ignored is physical death.
The one we place the most emphasis.
The one that's most real to us. The one that's most real to us is the one that's really not real to God at all. Jesus turned around and says, "Oh, though you die, though you die," and what he does is, in your mind, you're thinking you're dying. "Though you die, you shall no wise die, but you shall live forever." Does that make sense? You know, so, you know, it's like the Lord doesn't even recognize hardly physical death. It's not incorrect to say it, because for us, that's the only way we have to identify, you know, when somebody passes or anything else, that they're gone, that they're dead, you know, that their soul has left us, you know, so forth, etc. So we call it physical death, and it's not wrong to do that or put it up there. I love it because the idea of physical death should help us, so it seems to confuse us maybe. I don't know, but I think it's Roger's right, the death side of what God is. But the physical and the spiritual. Physical you can see. Spiritual you can't see. And the only time you'll ever see it for what it really is, guys, do you understand? Don't you want to see people really saved? If they're going to really be saved, they've got to be able to what? They've got to see where they're at. That's the honest truth. Okay, so here's where they're at. If you're spiritually dead, And okay, that means you're spiritually separated from God, though you're still walking around in a body. What does that do for you? You're separated from God. By the way, everything you are to God at that point is sin. You're missing God in every point. I promise you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're spiritually separated from it. That's the most horrid thing that you can imagine. Because in all honesty, name your sin. Name your favorite sin. Rosemary, what's your favorite? Maybe
Swearing.
swearing.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting hurt that day. Okay. Let her.
Okay, I don't know if that's really even acceptable, but,
That one.
okay, bad mouth syndrome, okay, I don't know if that's like bad breath, I don't know. No, we're getting way out here. Okay, all right, yeah, stay with the 10 Commandments, name one. Okay, killing, thou shalt not kill, okay, or murder, okay? Okay, thou shalt not kill, you know, and by the way, can you kill by neglect? So if people are spiritually dying and we keep walking past them, we're just letting them.
Like robbing God, you can do that, like trying to take it in the toy. It's not necessarily all tied.
Right,
It's still
right.
something else.
Okay, kind of though, the point that I'm trying to get at is not so much how evil we really are, which we are, and I want to make sure we understand that. But I want you to really see spiritually separated from God. That's all we are. You understand? Say you are murderers. You really are. And by the way, if you're angry in your heart toward anybody, you just committed an act of murder. And I'm sure that happens quite a few times, probably a day, doesn't it? You know, there was a time in my life that I swear everybody I looked at had died. You know, I was angry, you know, I don't even know why. Everything else, just, you know, hate, all those, you know, and notice how anger, hate, bitterness, all those things just pile up. And it's all because we're separated from God. See, meanwhile, we go through pretenses. Oh, I'm a good person. I do this and I do that. I can give some charity over here or do something for somebody there. That makes me a good person, or I'll make up for some of the bad things I've done. You know, spiritually dead is spiritually dead. Have you ever seen a dead man, going back to the physical example, have you ever seen a dead body get up and do anything? It never happens, guys, not a dead one. And again, I just can't help but say this. You know, there's been many examples, actually, quite a few of examples of those being raised from the dead. You know what I'm saying? And they were raised from the dead as an example for those living on earth, that we understood the need of seeing people born again or saved in their lifetime. That's the honest truth. But everyone that was raised back from the dead, I remind you, there is none of them that ever stops, thanks God, praises God, or acts the least bit like being happy or pleased that they were raised from the dead. That's the honest truth. And by the way, the only ones raised from the dead was those who were saved. They were assured of their salvation before they died, and in death they have died. They were with the Lord, and they were asked to come back or told to come back. They do so, right back to the body, and you know, on different examples, Elijah, different ones right on down. Even the Apostle Paul fell out and died, fell out of an upper room, listening to Paul preach. You think I'm long-winded? There's been a few I swore died, fell out of the pew, and I assure you, I cannot raise you from the dead. So if you kill yourself, you're on your own. Okay. Okay. spiritual death results into eternal death. It's the only thing. So here we go. You're spiritually dead, your soul separates, and the next thing is God in hell. And I'm just real sure of this myself. There's not, there's some pictures that gives us different ideas, maybe somewhat different, but I'm convinced of this. It is appointed once for every person to die, and you're already judged. You get it? You know why you're already judged? You're either dead or alive. You're either been separated from God, and that means you was the whole time. And you get there, your soul leaves, there it is. And I personally, I think it's leaving like this. David, and I got from scripture as well, Jonathan tells David, death, and he's referring to physical death at this point, but he says that death is just a short step. Just one short step. Make sense? And what I'm, just to give you some kind of feeling or expression of it, here's a man that's lived separated really from God. He may have went to church, he may have done his right, but everything was about him. He was going to get right with God. It's the same thing as Adam making fig leaves and trying to cover up his own nakedness and stuff. It's only God that can change any of this. And so, and again, his means, and I want to keep coming back to this right here, because the results of spiritual can only be overcome for the one yet physically in a body, can only be overcome through words of God. Does everybody understand that? The only way that we're going to make a difference here, can you see, because spiritual death is a reality. And if they're ever going to hear anything, they've got to hear it while they're physically alive, to where this spiritual can become real to them. First, their condition of death. Have mercy on me, I'm a sinner. What was it? Okay, but what did there's realization all over the place, isn't it? Something he's probably never done before. But all of a sudden he's aware of his spiritual condition. He is separated in sin. He's drowning in his own sin. If he's in his sin, he can't go into heaven, and he knows it. He's in a heap of trouble. And he said, have mercy on me. Simply, don't give me what I deserve. Does that make sense? And then what we find is terms like this, his sins are blotted out. And you see, so if they're blotted out, his soul goes ahead and departs from his body, then he's not separated from God no more, but as it steps into the very essence of the glory of God. Right? The judgment, guys, happened with Adam back really underneath the tree. Don't eat of that, for in the day you eat thereof, you will surely die. So how do you die? In the day you eat, you're spiritually separated from me. The results of that is that your soul will separate from that body that's made of the elements of this earth that's now cursed. And when your soul separates, it immediately goes before God, and then it says, and then the judgment. But it's not like, and then it's revealed. Then you know where you're at. Does that make sense? Judgment's really done past. It's past here. You're already experiencing it here. You're living it out through life of sin, being separated from God. And then the physical takes place where the soul separates, and if you haven't been to Jesus again, then it's hellfire. There's terms that's given with this, like the binding, casting, the fall, all these different terms. And every one of them, guys, is really horrifying. You've heard of hellfire, eternal fire, eternal flame, things to worm that dieth not, a gnawing and eating, probably a consciousness, awareness, and chewing up but never consuming anything. Grievous torment in these flames, testimonies. The screams and agony of the generations of Noah that perished, didn't get in. 40 years of preaching and didn't get in. You get discouraged over talking to somebody a couple of times and you're usually done. I don't know how to sat there pound on that boat for 40 years. Because when he sailed away, he ended up saving our generation. He saved you, you know, if I can say it that way, because he brought to you Jesus and brought to us generations that we could, our souls can be born without having to go to heaven. So anyway, I think we're getting the idea, aren't we? Or are we getting it? Because boy, guys, this is really important for us to understand what every person that we're talking to. And when I say person again, you need to start putting names to them. That really is old Fred, Billy Bob, whatever, people that you know. You know, this is real people, okay? And they're really walking around dead if they haven't been born again. If they're not born from above. And we'll get into some of that even deeper a little bit later. But we can see that they're dead. I think we've made a tremendous accomplishment if we understand what's unseen. And if we can understand the only way anyone physically alive can see what's unseen, is they've got to have words of God. The only place that they can get those words is from you. How do they get the words from you?
You talk over it.
Thank you, Merv. You talk to them. Yeah, but how can they get those words from you? It's not just any word. You know, them understanding his plan in the Super Bowl probably wouldn't do much for anybody's salvation. But, you know, hearing what God has to say about somebody's salvation could save them, couldn't it? And the way it could save them is because, you see, those words can make God real. They can understand what they've never been able to see before, how separated they are from God. They might even get a better reflection of sin if it was taught correctly. Does that make sense? See, sin's been used as a whipping post. It's been used as a means. And you know, you think about it as a means of separating us from each other. And then in that, accusing that we're separated, some are separated further from God than us, so we're better off than those that's further separated.
Back under that tree.
Well, it's all under the tree. Every bit of that, it's all about the you. It really is. And guys, I hope you understand in our gospel, it has nothing, zero to do with you. It has everything to do with him. Does that make sense? It really does. It just has everything to do with Jesus. Now, what's amazing is this word, and by the way, in the beginning was who were they talking about? Jesus, wasn't it? It was really a person. But how do we know him by? Words. It's the only way you got to know Jesus. Every Sunday you come here and what do? Do I come drag Jesus out of a suitcase and hold him up and say, here he is? No. You hear words of him, don't you? And then all of a sudden in your soul, mind, and desire and feeling, all of a sudden you can see him. And then all of a sudden you see him, and when you see him, you'll see things of his feelings toward you. And next thing, you're having feelings back toward him. Sometimes they're not always positive. Some people really get angry at the idea that God could love them. Oh, that's big, David. They get angry because God can love them. They like a God. See, they like a God. They like their God being one that's mad and angry and wrathful and trying to track you down and punish you. That's the kind of God they like. And why do they have that reflection of God? Because that's the way they see themselves. That's the way they want to be. They want to be mad and angry and tracking you down and punishing you for your crimes. Guys, I'm going to hold it right here. I sure love you. I think we've got a pretty good shot at this now, don't we? Do you understand spiritual death? Do you understand eternal death? Do you understand there's no getting out of eternal death? Well, I can come up with terrible things to try to stick in your mind. Where did that ever come from about, Sammy, about hearing the fat lady sing?
It's not over till the fat lady sings, which is from opera.
Yeah, it's from opera.
Like the big, well, really the alto or the Brunhilde would sing the finale.
The finale song. And so they'd always say it's never over until the fat lady sings, because usually the person that had that kind of voice would be very large. Right. So anyway, guys, you know, when you hear this, tune it up, you're in trouble if you ain't been to Jesus. Okay? So everybody make sure you get to Jesus. Now here's something I'd like for us to really, you know, really start getting our intentions down. I'd like for you to really start looking beyond ourselves and really seeing others around us. I wish everybody would just start kind of making a list, if you would. Who all around you that, you know, that you would really wonder whether or not they've been saved. If you wonder about it, chances are they're wondering about it too. You know, there's nothing more than anybody wants to know is when they could leave this world and be all right with God. Because I really guarantee you that, and many of us who has family, again, we're relatives, and the reason I keep stressing that is because they're usually under us, and because of that, we look over them. We look out in all the lost world, but it's right here, it's right there, it's all about us. Okay? Sometimes we feel grieved because it is our relatives or those we really have a special affection for, and their lostness makes us feel grieved. And remember, lostness and, you know, sinfulness, lostfulness, and everything, yeah, they're sin all the time before God. They're missing God. That's what that means. I didn't even get a good job on that, but maybe we'll clean that up some more. Okay? Miss Martha, would you come back now?